The crystalline walls of the Galactic Council headquarters rose like frozen waves, catching and fracturing the light of distant stars. Inside the Grand Chamber, representatives of dozens of species sat in concentric rings around the central speaking platform. The air hummed with the soft clicks, whistles, and murmurs of interspecies communication. Ziktox, xenological recorder for the Council, settled into his observation pod with practiced ease. His skin rippled from its natural blue-green to a more focused amber as he activated his neural interface to begin documenting the emergency session. Beside him, his colleague Vorax clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. 7 cycles since the humans joined, she noted, and already an emergency session concerning them. Zik's skin flickered with yellow spots of curiosity. We should not presume humans are at fault. The alert only mentioned Sector 7 disputes. They both watched as the human delegation entered the chamber. They were small creatures by Council standards, barely reaching the chest height of most members. They wore their distinctive blue-silver uniforms that seemed to shimmer under the chamber lights. Unlike many species who displayed dominance through size or biological displays, the humans moved with a quiet confidence that Zik had always found fascinating. The lead human, Ambassador Dana Powell, nodded politely to various representatives as she passed. Behind her walked Commander Jack Foster, their military attaché, and 2 other staff members Zik didn't immediately recognize. What strikes me as odd, Vorax said quietly, is how consistently polite they are. Most new species go through periods of aggression or cultural missteps when joining the Council. Zik's skin rippled in agreement. Humans come from what they call a death world: high gravity, extreme weather, abundant predators, frequent natural disasters. Species from such environments typically evolve to be extremely aggressive or paranoid, yet humans display neither trait overtly. The chamber's ambient lighting dimmed, and High Counselor Driza of the Paxian Collective raised her luminescent tendrils to signal the start of proceedings. This emergency session is now convened, she announced, her translator rendering her vibrating speech patterns into the standard Council language. We address growing concerns regarding territorial claims in Sector 7, specifically the Nari system. Representative Grow of the Haxan Empire has requested priority speaking rights. Zik's skin darkened slightly. The Haxan were an ancient empire, prideful and expansionist. Any dispute involving them carried the risk of military escalation. Representative Grow moved to the central platform, his scaled body gleaming under the lights. The Haxan were reptilian in appearance, with powerful tails and elongated snouts, filled with teeth that they displayed freely when speaking. A biological trait that many species found unconsciously intimidating. High Counselor, esteemed Council, Grow began, his voice carrying a distinctive hiss. The Haxan Empire wishes to formally challenge Earth's protective designation over the Nari civilization in Sector 7. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. Protective designations were rarely challenged once granted. The Nari system contains valuable mineral deposits that the Haxan Empire has historical claims to. Grow continued. Earth was granted temporary protective status over the pre-spaceflight Nakari civilization merely 7 cycles ago. We believe this designation was premature and based on incomplete information. Ambassador Powell rose immediately, her expression composed but firm. The Council granted Earth protective status over the Nakari under Treaty 5924, which clearly states that pre-spaceflight civilizations are to be protected from external interference until they achieve independent interstellar travel. Grow's tail lashed once against the platform. The Haxan Empire has no intention of interfering with the Nakari development. Our extraction operations would be conducted on uninhabited worlds within the system, using minimal impact technologies. Any extraction operation, Powell countered, would involve ships, energy signatures, and potential visual contact that could severely disrupt Nakari cultural and technological development. They already possess advanced telescopes and have religious practices centered around celestial observation. Gro's scales darkened in what Zik recognized as irritation. The Haxan Empire finds Earth's sudden interest in an obscure civilization suspicious at best. The Nikari are at least 3 centuries from achieving spaceflight. Careful resource extraction would not impede their progress. Zik noticed Commander Foster, leaning over to whisper something to Ambassador Powell. The ambassador nodded slightly before responding. The timeline of technological development cannot be accurately predicted, Powell said. The Nikari have shown accelerated advancement in the past decade. Furthermore, their religious beliefs specifically include the concept of sky guardians, who protect them from malevolent forces. Visual confirmation of Haxan mining ships could trigger significant cultural trauma. High Counselor Dreza raised her tendrils. The protective designation was granted through proper channels and with full council approval. Does the Haxan Empire have new information that would warrant reconsideration? Gro's posture stiffened. We believe Earth has ulterior motives. The mineral compositions found in the Nari system are remarkably similar to those required for Earth's new propulsion systems. We suspect they are using the protective designation to secure future mining rights for themselves. Powell's composed expression never wavered. Earth has no intention of mining in the Nari system. Our protective designation request was based solely on our first contact protocols, which prioritize the natural development of emerging civilizations. Zik noted the subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere. What had begun as a routine territorial dispute was evolving into something more dangerous, a potential military standoff between the relatively new human presence and the ancient Haxan Empire. Gro's next words confirmed this suspicion. The Haxan Empire has already dispatched survey vessels to the outer reaches of the Nari system. We believe this falls well within our rights under council law. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. This was effectively a declaration that the Haxan Empire intended to proceed regardless of council ruling. To Zik's surprise, it was Commander Foster who stepped forward, rather than Ambassador Powell. High Counselor, Foster said, his voice carrying a new edge that Zik had never heard from a human representative before. With your permission, I believe this situation requires some clarity. Dreza's tendrils pulsed with light. The Council recognizes Commander Foster of Earth. Foster moved to stand beside Ambassador Powell. The Haxan Empire should be aware that Earth takes its protective responsibilities very seriously. Our vessels have been monitoring the Nari system continuously since we were granted protective status. Gro made a dismissive gesture. Your presence in the system consists of 3 observation platforms and a single patrol vessel. Hardly a deterrent. For the first time, Zik saw something change in the human's demeanor. Foster's polite diplomatic expression shifted into something harder, more predatory. Representative Gro, Foster said, his voice now carrying a dangerous undertone. I think there's been a misunderstanding about humans that perhaps we should clarify for the entire council. The chamber grew quieter. You've all been dealing with what we call our polite mode since we joined the council. Foster continued. It's a choice we make because we respect this institution and its members. But I should inform you that this politeness is not indicative of weakness or inability to act. Foster touched a control on his wrist device, and a holographic display appeared above the central platform. It showed the Nari system, with the Haxan survey ship highlighted in red. Then the display zoomed out slightly, revealing something that made Gro's scales pale considerably. Surrounding the Haxan vessel, previously hidden by sophisticated cloaking technology, were no fewer than 50 Earth warships. We don't advertise our military capabilities, Foster said, conversationally. Though Zik could detect a new tension in the chamber. We don't parade our weapons or make threats. That doesn't mean we aren't prepared to enforce protective designations that we've legally accepted responsibility for. Gro's tail thumped against the platform. This is outrageous. Cloaked vessels of this number constitute an act of intimidation. The Council records indicated Earth maintained a modest interstellar fleet of no more than 20 vessels total. Foster shrugged, the gesture almost casual. We're private people. We don't share everything. High Counselor Dreza's tendrils flashed with alarm. Commander Foster, this revelation is deeply concerning. Hidden military assets of this magnitude represent a significant breach of trust. With respect, High Counselor, Foster replied, Council regulations require us to declare all military assets deployed within Council space. These vessels are registered and their capabilities documented. The fact that we chose not to broadcast their locations is not a violation of any treaty. Zik found his skin shifting to a deep purple of concern. He had extensively studied Earth's historical records since they joined the Council. Their planetary history was filled with brutal conflicts, technological weapons that staggered the imagination, and a propensity for what the humans themselves called mutually assured destruction deterrent strategies. For the first time, he wondered if the Council had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of their newest members. The Haxon vessel is currently being monitored, Foster continued. Should it attempt to deploy any extraction equipment, we would consider it a violation of the protective designation. The holographic display changed again, showing a close-up transmission. A stern-faced human female in a dark uniform appeared. This is Admiral Helen Wu of the Earth Defense Fleet, she stated. This message is being transmitted on emergency channels to the Haxon vessel in the Nari system. You are operating in a protected zone without authorization. You have 24 hours to withdraw all equipment and personnel from the system. Failure to comply will result in consequences. This is your only warning. The transmission ended, and the hologram disappeared. The Council chamber had fallen completely silent. Gro's scales had shifted to a pale yellow, a sign of extreme stress in Haxon physiology. This is unprecedented. High Counselor, I demand protection under Council law from these threats. High Counselor Dreza's tendrils pulsed rapidly. Commander Foster, while Earth has the right to enforce its protective designation, threats of military action should have been brought before the Council first. Foster nodded respectfully. You're absolutely right. High Counselor, that's why we're here now, transparently informing the Council of our position and capabilities. We would much prefer a diplomatic resolution. Ambassador Powell stepped forward again. The Haxon Empire has a choice. Respect the protective designation and withdraw from the Nari system, or petition the Council for a formal review of the designation with new evidence. We are open to the latter option and would participate in good faith. Gro's tail lashed in agitation, but Zik could see the calculation in his eyes. The Haxon representative was reassessing his position now that he understood the actual military capabilities he was facing. The Haxon Empire will temporarily withdraw its survey vessel while we consult with the Imperial Court, Gro finally said, his voice carrying a tightly controlled rage. But this matter is not concluded. High Counselor Dreza raised her tendrils. The Council acknowledges the Haxon Empire's decision to withdraw. We will reconvene in 3 cycles to review the protective designation if a formal petition is filed. This emergency session is adjourned. As the representatives began to disperse, Zik noticed that the humans remained together, speaking quietly among themselves. The other Council members gave them a wider berth than before. Fascinating, Vorax clicked beside him. They maintained their diplomatic approach until physically threatened, then revealed just enough force to establish deterrence without actual conflict. Zik's skin rippled with uncertainty. I'm updating their species profile immediately. The implications are significant. Oh? Vorax tilted her head. Humans aren't naturally peaceful as we assumed, Zik explained. They're predators who choose peace. There's a profound difference. 3 days later, the Council reconvened with even greater urgency. Zik arrived early to find the chamber already buzzing with tension. The Haxon delegation had expanded, now including several military advisors alongside Representative Gro. The human delegation appeared unchanged, though Zick noted they had added one member, a Mu scientist named Dr. Lowe, known for his expertise in Earth culture. High Counselor Dreza called the session to order, with visible concern in her luminous tendrils. This emergency session addresses serious allegations brought by Earth against the Haxan Empire, she announced. Ambassador Powell has requested priority speaking rights on a matter of council security. Powell took the central platform, her expression grave. High Counselor, esteemed council, Earth has discovered evidence that the Haxan Empire is conducting illegal research into displacement weapons technology in violation of Treaty 8942. The chamber erupted in alarmed vocalizations. Displacement weapons were among the most strictly prohibited technologies in Council space, capable of tearing holes in space-time itself with catastrophic consequences. Grow surged to his feet. This is an outrageous accusation, a transparent attempt to divert attention from Earth's hidden military buildup. High Counselor Dreza raised her tendrils for silence. These are serious allegations. Ambassador Powell, what evidence does Earth present? Powell nodded to Commander Foster, who stepped forward with a data crystal. With the Council's permission, we submit chemical analysis from the debris field surrounding the Haxan survey vessel that departed the Nari system, along with intercepted communications that confirm the nature of their research. The data crystal was inserted into the Council systems, projecting detailed molecular analyses and communication transcripts above the central platform. Dr. Lowe, the Mu scientist, stepped forward. His furred face was solemn as he addressed the Council. As an independent expert in both Haxan and Earth technologies, I can confirm these molecular structures are consistent with only one application: the creation of space-time disruption fields. The intercepted communications clearly reference project displacement and testing protocols that align with prohibited weapons research. Grow's scales darkened to a deep red of fury. These communications are fabricated. This is nothing but a human plot to... He was interrupted by an unexpected voice from within the Haxan delegation itself. The communications are authentic. All eyes turned to a smaller Haxan who had risen from his seat. Zick recognized him as Xantur, a renowned Haxan physicist. "Xantur," Grow hissed, "you forget yourself." "I forget nothing. Representative Grow," Tur replied calmly, "including the Imperial Court's direct prohibition against displacement research after the Centauri Rift disaster. Yet you authorized the research anyway, against the explicit command of our Emperor." The chamber fell silent as the internal division within the Haxan delegation became apparent. Tur continued, addressing the Council directly. "I have served the Haxan Empire loyally for my entire life. But Representative Grow has increasingly aligned himself with military factions that believe expansion through force is the only path forward. The displacement research was initiated without full Imperial knowledge, using the Nari system survey as cover." Grow lunged toward Tur, his claws extended. "Traitor, you will be executed for this!" Before he could reach Tur, Council security forces materialized around him, restraint fields activating to immobilize the enraged representative. The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates shouted questions and demands. High Counselor Dreza's tendrils flashed with emergency patterns, calling for order. It took several minutes before the chamber quieted enough for proceedings to continue. "Scientist Tur," Dreza said when order was restored. "The Council recognizes your courage in speaking. Will you elaborate on the extent of this research?" Tur bowed respectfully. "The project is in early stages, but even early experimentation with displacement technology carries significant risks of spatial instability. More concerning is that Representative Grow planned to use the technology to forcibly remove the Nakari from their homeworld if Earth's protection could not be circumvented diplomatically." Ambassador Powell's expression remained calm, but Zick could see the cold anger in her eyes. "High Counselor, in light of these revelations, Earth requests immediate Council intervention to secure all displacement research and enforce the relevant treaties. High Counselor Dreza turned to the remaining Haxan delegation. Does the Haxan Empire acknowledge these claims? An older Haxan stepped forward, his scales bearing the markings of Imperial Court membership. The Empire acknowledges the unauthorized actions of Representative Grow and pledges full cooperation with Council investigators. Grow's faction will be recalled to face Imperial justice, and Scientist Tour will lead our delegation moving forward. As Grow was led away by security forces, still hissing threats, Zik felt his skin shift to the deep orange of intense focus. This was an unprecedented diplomatic realignment happening in real time. Dr. Lau, from the Earth delegation, raised his hand to speak. High Counselor, if I may suggest a path forward regarding the Nari system. Dreza gestured for him to continue. The Nakari are indeed approaching a critical juncture in their development, Lau explained. Their astronomical observations have advanced significantly. Rather than maintaining complete isolation, Earth proposes establishing a visible outpost on Nari Prime, one that can be observed by the Nakari telescopes, but maintains minimal interference. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. This approach, Liu continued, would prepare the Nakari for eventual first contact, while providing a legitimate presence to deter any future, unauthorized incursions into the system. We call it the Visible Guardian approach. Tour, now leading the Haxan delegation, considered this. The Empire would find this acceptable, provided the outpost remains purely defensive, and Haxan observers are permitted regular inspection rights. High Counselor Dreza's tendrils pulsed thoughtfully. This proposal represents a significant evolution in protection protocols. The Council will need to establish new guidelines if this approach is approved. Ambassador Powell nodded. Earth is prepared to draft those guidelines in collaboration with Council experts, and with input from all member species. We believe this approach balances protection with preparation. The session continued for hours as the details were debated. Zik documented every exchange, his skin cycling through various shades as he processed the implications of what he was witnessing. 2 cycles later, the Council formally adopted what became known as the Powell Doctrine, a new framework for protecting pre-spaceflight civilizations that included visible outposts and gradual acclimatization protocols. The Haxan Empire, under new leadership, publicly renounced displacement weapons research and accepted Council monitors in their military research facilities. Ziktox completed his official report on the proceedings, but added a personal recommendation to reclassify humans in the xenological database. Their status would change from potential threat requiring monitoring to potential guardians requiring partnership. As he finalized his report, Vorax joined him in his observation pod. The humans are not what we thought, she clicked softly. Zik's skin rippled in agreement. They have the capacity for tremendous violence, yet choose diplomacy first. They develop weapons that could destroy worlds, yet self-regulate their use more strictly than the Council does. They appear small and accommodating, until threatened. Do you think they're trustworthy? Vorax asked. Zik considered the question carefully. I think they're exactly what they present themselves to be, a species that has seen the consequences of unrestricted conflict and chosen a different path. Their polite mode isn't deception. It's a deliberate choice they make every day. And when they turn it off? Vorax's mandibles clicked with concern. Then, Zik said, his skin shifting to a thoughtful blue-green. We should be very grateful they consider us friends. In the weeks that followed, Earth established its visible outpost on Nari Prime. The structure was designed to be clearly visible through Nakari telescopes, a gleaming beacon on their moon that would become the center of new religious and scientific discussions among the pre-spaceflight civilization. Zik found himself frequently reviewing footage from the Council sessions. One phrase that Commander Foster had used in a private conversation with Grow, captured by Council security recordings, particularly stuck with him. Where I come from, we have an old saying, fuck around and find out. It means that actions have consequences. The Haxan Empire just found out. I suggest you remember that lesson. It wasn't included in his official report, but Zik added it to his personal notes. There was something quintessentially human about the phrase, blunt, efficient, and carrying a promise rather than a threat. The humans continued their diplomatic work in the council, unfailingly polite and collaborative. But now, when they spoke, everyone listened a little more carefully. In his final analysis, Zik wrote, "Humans appear obsessed with fictional entertainment depicting their own extinction, pandemic scenarios, alien invasions, natural disasters. I now understand this is not morbid fascination, but psychological preparation. They constantly imagine worst-case scenarios, not out of fear, but to ensure they are never caught unprepared. Their politeness is not weakness, but efficiency. Why use force when words will suffice? But make no mistake, when words fail, their transition from diplomats to warriors happens in the blink of an eye. Their favorite entertainment," he added as a footnote, "includes a game called chess, where pieces are sacrificed strategically, and victory comes through careful positioning rather than brute force. In retrospect, we should have paid more attention to their games." 3 cycles after the Nari incident, at Zik's recommendation, the Council established a new joint military exercise program with Earth forces. The first lesson, taught by Admiral Wu herself, was titled, Polite Mode, the Art of Decisive Restraint. Every Council species sent representatives. None wanted to be caught unprepared should humanity's polite mode ever turn off permanently. The Nikari, meanwhile, developed a new religious doctrine based on their observations of the Earth outpost. They called it the Shining Guardians and accelerated their space program with renewed purpose. Earth scientists predicted they might achieve spaceflight within 1 generation instead of 3. And in the chambers of the Galactic Council, human representatives continued their diplomatic work with unfailing courtesy and calm competence. But now, when Ambassador Powell spoke, even the oldest empires in the galaxy listened with new respect. Because everyone had seen what happened when humanity's polite mode turned off.